I am back with my second video. In my first video, I talked about the physical quantities and their upper and lower limits, and I also talked about the observable range of these physical quantities and the regime of applicability of different branches of physics. So in this video, I will talk about the mechanics of a particle, in which I will teach you about Newton's second law, conservative force, and conservation of momentum and energy. It is just going to be a quick review. I hope that you are already familiar with it. So let us start. So Newton's second law is a quantitative relation between applied force and acceleration produced. It is given by simple relation F is equal to ma. Of course you are familiar. It also gives an idea about quantifying masses in terms of single known mass. It means that if a constant force acts on two masses m1 and m2, then the acceleration produced will be a1 and a2 respectively. So since the force is same for both particles, we can write m1 a1 is equal to m2 a2, which implies m2 is equal to m1 into a1 by a2. It's simple. It says that if I know one mass m1 and I know the acceleration ratios from a constant force, then I can express any other mass m2 in terms of m1, since a1 or a2 is dimensionless. So this relation gives an operational definition of mass. So these are some other ways of writing Newton's law. The first one says that the force is equal to rate of change of momentum. Since the momentum is the amount of motion in an object, so to change this amount of motion, you will need to apply force. Example is that if a car is moving with a certain speed, so it has a certain momentum. So if you want to increase or decrease its momentum, then you will need to apply force. So if the applied force is larger, then the change in momentum will be larger. The second one says that F is equal to m double derivative of r. It lies in the calculus limits. If the change with respect to time is very small, then we can use this differential equation. Please note that these two equations are only valid if mass m is constant. There are certain conditions in which masses are not constant. For example, in case of a rocket, it consumes its own mass as a fuel, so its mass is decreasing with respect to time. Another example can be a person carrying a bucket of water, but the bucket contains a hole, so water is dripping out. So in this case, the mass is also decreasing. So if such a case, then these two equations will not be applicable. Then all you have to do is to consider mass as a variable in first equation and differentiate it, and thus you will have an extra term in this expression. Okay, just take a quick review of the solution of this law. So on the left side we have force, and force in general can be position dependent, velocity dependent, and time dependent. In fact, it can be dependent on acceleration. Radiation damping is such a case. So this is a second order differential equation, and to solve this uniquely, we need two independent constants. These constants can be determined using initial conditions, that is initial position and velocity. Once we know the initial conditions, then we can find a unique solution R of t. From R of t, we can find all other parameters. So this solution is unique, means we can determine the future of system. That's why Newtonian mechanics is called deterministic in nature. To summarize above, I can say that the force and initial position and velocity determine the future of system. Means that if I know force and I know these two initial conditions, then I can solve the above equation and I can find its solution, and from that solution I can find each and everything which I need. Why initial conditions should be independent? It is a good question, because I just said that if we know the position vector r of t, then we can find all other parameters. So does it mean that if I know the position at initial time, so can I find the velocity at that time? So this answer is quite simple. So take an example. So if I drop a ball from a certain height, so it means I know the initial position. It will fall downward in a straight line. But if I give a initial velocity in a horizontal direction, then it will fall in a parabolic path. So it means both position and velocity are independent of each other. We have to specify position, velocity and force to solve this equation. So now we have conservation of momentum. So Newton's law says that if force is equal to 0, then dB by dt is equal to 0 and thus the momentum is constant. If external net force is 0, linear momentum is conserved. By conserved, it means constant in time. For example, a spaceship moving in a deep space neglecting gravitational forces will have a constant momentum. It will go on moving without slowing down. So this is the statement of conservation of momentum. Conservation of linear momentum also produces the Newton's first law, which states that if an object is moving and the net external force is 0, then it will keep on moving. So the next is conservation of angular momentum. The first equation is Newton's second law. So if I take cross product on both sides with a vector r, so I can get this equation where r is the position vector with respect to some point O. O is the point about which I want to measure the angular momentum. The right side can be explained on the basis of a theorem from vector analysis. So if I have r cross dr by dt, so it is equal to d by dt r cross dr by dt. Since P contains dr by dt, so that's why this is applicable. I will put a link in the description of this theorem. So finally we got this equation. So where n and L are called torque and angular momentum about O. So torque is a measure of rotation and angular momentum is amount of angular motion about point O. We see in above equation that if n is equal to 0, if the left side of this equation is 0, then the d by dt of L is equal to 0, which implies L is constant. So it can be put in this way: if the net external torque acting on an object is 0, then angular momentum is conserved, mean it is constant in time. As the particle from position 1 to position 2, work should be done, which is given as W is equal to integral from 1 to 2 f dot ds. Using Newton's second law, I can use the value of force, and I also know that ds, the distance covered, is equal to velocity time interval. So I can put ds is equal to v dt. So in this equation I get m 1 to 2 into dv by dt dot v dt. So dt cancel out and we will have v into dv. Sorry, there is some mistake. It is not dv squared, it is v into dv. So by simple integration I can get this relation. So I got W is equal to half m v2 squared minus half m v1 squared, and these quantities can be put as t2 minus t1. So now I want to derive the work by another way. With a very simple assumption, if force is conservative, then it can be written as a negative gradient of some scalar function v. It is the condition for a conservative force that it should be derivable from a scalar potential. So now the force can be written as minus gradient of potential. Since I want to find work done for this, I need f dot ds. So we have f. Now for ds, since in a conservative field the work done is independent of the path taken by, it only depends upon the initial and final position. So it means that if I displace the particle from position 1 to position 2, so the path along the normal direction is the effective path. So it's mean that ds is the normal path taken. So similarly the force is equal to negative gradient, so I can write this gradient as a differential form, means that I can write this del V as dV by dr, and ds is also equal to dr because the normal direction ds is equal to dr. So dV by dr into dr, so dr cancel with each other. So finally I get this equation. By integrating I can find v1 minus v2. So now this equation w is equal to v1 minus v2 is equal to w is equal to t2 minus t1. These two equations are equal, so I can equate them and finally I can get this result. So now this is a mathematical expression for the conservation of energy. So now the energy conservation theorem for a particle. So if the forces acting on a particle are conservative, then the total energy of the particle, that is kinetic energy plus potential energy, is conserved at each instant of time. Example are simple harmonic oscillator, simple pendulum. In both of these cases, the energy is conserved in each and every moment of time. If the forces acting on the particles are dissipative forces, Brake's forces, are like damping forces, so in that case this energy will not be conserved. Although the fundamental formalism in Newtonian mechanics is to solve the second equation and find a solution, and that solution will tell us about our system. But however, these conservation theorems can be used to find and solve some problems, some simple problems. So in a sense, they not only tell us about the nature of this classical mechanics, but they also help us in solving the problems. Okay, that's all for today. In my next video, I will talk about mechanics of a system of particle and I will derive these conservation theorem. So thanks for watching.